At some point in your 60s, something shifts. Not dramatically, not all at once, just a quiet, growing feeling that some of the things you have been carrying, the responsibilities, the expectations, the habits, the worries, are heavier than they used to be, and heavier than they need to be. You have spent the better part of your life building things, a career, a home, a family, a reputation, a way of showing up in the world. You have done the work, kept the commitments, met the expectations, yours and everyone else's. But here is the question most people never actually sit with. Which of those things still fits whom you are now? Because here is the truth about this stage of life that nobody says out loud. Carrying things that no longer fit is not noble. It is not admirable. It does not make you a better person. It just makes you tired. Today we are talking about 8 things worth scaling back after 65. Not giving up, not quitting, scaling back, creating space, letting some weight go that you have been carrying so long you stopped noticing how much it costs you. One of these 8 things, number 5, is something almost every senior carries daily and almost nobody questions. It looks like responsibility, it feels like love, but it quietly costs more than almost anything else on this list. We are going to talk about all 8, and I think by the end of this video at least one of them is going to feel like something you have already known for a while but have not yet let yourself act on. Let us begin. Welcome back to the Prime Epoch. I want to be upfront about something before we get into this. This is not a video about giving things up. It is not about shrinking your life or lowering your standards or becoming someone who cares less. It is about something almost opposite to that. It is about recognizing that at 65, 70, 75, the most valuable thing you have is not money, not possessions, not even health exactly. It is time and it is energy. And both of those things are finite in a way that is clearer now than it has ever been. Letting go after 65 is not about loss. It is about choosing, deciding, on purpose, what actually deserves the limited time and energy you have, and gently releasing the things that do not. The people who do this well do not look like they have given up. They look lighter, more present, more genuinely themselves than they have been in years. That is what this video is about. Let us start with Harold. Harold is 74. You know him from our earlier videos. Retired electrician. Lives alone. Keeps himself moving. About 2 years ago, Harold's daughter came to visit and noticed something. Her father, a man who had worked hard his entire life, who had always had a project on the go, always had a list on the counter, always had somewhere to be, looked exhausted in a way that sleep was not fixing. She asked him about it one evening over dinner, and Harold sat quietly for a moment before saying something she did not expect. I think I have been living someone else's schedule for 30 years, and now that nobody is requiring it of me anymore, I do not know how to stop. He was still waking up at 5:30 every morning out of habit, still saying yes to every request from neighbors, from church, from family, still maintaining the house exactly the way it had always been maintained, even the parts nobody saw, still carrying guilt about things that had happened 15 years ago, still worrying about what people thought of him, not because any of it was making him happy, just because he had never actually decided to stop. Harold spent the following year slowly, deliberately scaling back. Not everything, just the things that were costing more than they were giving. And the word he used to describe how he felt 12 months later was not relieved or free or even happy. He said, "I feel like myself again. I did not realize how long it had been." Today we are walking through the 8 things Harold learned to let go of, and that you might be ready to let go of too. Why this matters at this specific stage. Before we go through the 8, I want to spend a few minutes on why this conversation belongs specifically here, at 65, at 70, at 75, and not earlier. For most of adult life, carrying weight is appropriate. Young families need the people in them to push hard and carry much. Careers require sustained effort and presence. Communities need people who show up reliably and give generously. That is not the problem. The problem is that most people never get the signal that it is okay to put some of it down. Nobody throws you a party where they say, "You have done enough. You have earned the right to be a little more selective. You do not have to keep performing at full speed for the benefit of people and institutions that will manage perfectly well without you." Nobody says that. So most people just keep going, carrying the same load at the same pace into a stage of life where the body and the spirit are genuinely asking for something different. There is also this. Research on psychological well-being in later life consistently finds something called the positivity effect. Older adults who are doing well emotionally tend to have become more selective about what they give their attention to. They have naturally let go of things that drain without replenishing and invested more deeply in things that genuinely matter to them. This is not decline, it is wisdom. And the people who resist it, who keep performing busyness and obligation into their 70s because they do not know how to stop, tend to arrive at their late years feeling depleted in a way that is very hard to reverse. The 8 things on this list are not about giving up on life. They are about choosing a different, more honest version of it. Number 1, the need to stay constantly busy. Rest is not laziness. It never was. Harold's 5:30 alarm is a good place to start. There is a deeply ingrained idea in most people of this generation that being busy is a virtue, that productivity proves worth, that a day without a full schedule is a day wasted. This idea served a purpose once. When there were children to raise and careers to build and mortgages to pay, constant productivity was necessary and appropriate. But most people carry that belief long past the point where it makes any sense. And what it costs them is rest. Real rest, not sleep, but the kind of wakeful ease where you are not achieving anything and you feel okay about it. Real rest is not laziness. It is recovery. It is integration. It is the mental and emotional space in which your brain processes your life, consolidates your experiences, and allows genuine contentment to surface. Many seniors describe a persistent, low-level guilt when they are not doing something productive. Sitting in the garden with a cup of tea feels self-indulgent. Reading in the afternoon feels like something should be happening instead. That guilt is not conscience. It is a habit that has outlived its usefulness. The permission to simply be, without agenda, without productivity, without a reason beyond this is pleasant, and I am here, is one of the most significant things worth claiming after 65. Harold disabled his alarm, not every day, but most days. He started having what he called slow mornings, 2 hours where nothing was scheduled and nothing was required. He initially described them as uncomfortable. After 3 weeks, he called them the best part of his day. You do not have to earn rest at this point in your life. You have already earned it. Number 2, relationships that only take. You are allowed to be selective about who gets your time. This one is harder to talk about because it involves people. And talking about people we love, or used to love, or feel obligated toward, in terms of whether they are worth our energy feels uncomfortable. But let us be honest about something. Not every relationship in your life is reciprocal. Some people, not because they are bad people, just because of who they are, consistently take more than they give. They call when they need something. They require significant emotional energy. They leave you feeling drained rather than replenished after spending time with them. When you were younger and had more energy, absorbing those relationships was possible. You had enough to give and still have some left. But energy is more finite now, and repeatedly giving it to relationships that do not return it is genuinely costly to your mood, to your health, to your ability to be present for the people and things that actually matter to you. Letting go of draining relationships does not necessarily mean cutting people off. It means being more intentional about how much of yourself you give. Shorter visits, less frequent contact, more boundaries around what you will discuss and what you will not. You are allowed to be selective. At 65, you have earned that right more completely than at any previous point in your life. Dorothy found this the most difficult of all the things we are going to cover today. There was a family member she had been managing emotionally for 20 years, absorbing the drama, fielding the calls, smoothing the waters. She eventually told me, "I realized one day that this person has not once asked how I am in 20 years. And I kept picking up the phone." She did not cut the person off. She just stopped performing as the emotional support system. She started taking longer to return calls. She stopped volunteering herself as the solver of problems. The family member barely noticed, and Dorothy got about 15 hours of her life back every month. Number 3, the need for everyone's approval. What people think of you is none of your business. There is a phrase that sounds almost rude the first time you hear it. What people think of you is none of your business. But the more you sit with it, the more sense it makes. Most people, if they are honest with themselves, spend an extraordinary amount of mental and emotional energy managing their image, worrying about whether they came across well in a conversation last Tuesday, overthinking a decision in case someone judges them for it, choosing their words carefully not because the words matter but because of who might be listening. This is exhausting, and it is largely invisible, which makes it easy to carry without noticing. The desire for approval is deeply human. It evolved in social animals for good reasons. But after 65, the calculus genuinely changes. You have less time to spend on other people's opinions of you, and frankly, the opinion of someone who does not know you, or who knows you only partially, or who has their own complicated reasons for judging, has very little bearing on anything that actually matters in your life. Harold described a moment that changed him. He had spent 3 days agonizing over whether to send a particular message to a family member, going over and over how it might be interpreted, whether it would be judged, and then he thought, "How many hours do I have left? And is this what I want to spend them on?" He sent the message. The family member responded warmly. 3 days of worry for nothing. The shift here is not becoming someone who does not care about anything. It is becoming someone who cares about the right things, the actual quality of your relationships, your own integrity, your own honesty, rather than the performance of those things for an imagined audience. What people think of you is largely about them anyway. Let it be. Number 4, clutter, physical and mental, the weight of everything you are still keeping just in case. Let us talk about stuff, physical stuff, specifically. The spare bedroom full of things from the children's childhoods that nobody has looked at in 15 years. The kitchen cupboards with 3 sets of crockery because you might need them if everyone comes at once. The garage that takes 20 minutes to navigate, the storage unit being paid for monthly to house things that have not been touched since the last time they were moved. Every item you own requires some portion of your mental energy to maintain, to organize, to be responsible for. Most people do not notice this cost because it is so diffuse and so constant. But the cumulative weight of too many possessions, particularly possessions connected to a version of your life that is no longer current, is real and measurable. Studies on home environments and senior well-being consistently find that people who have simplified their physical spaces report lower stress, better sleep, and a greater sense of daily ease. Not because the stuff itself was making them unhappy, but because its absence creates a kind of space, visual, physical, mental, that feels genuinely different. This is not about minimalism as a lifestyle. It is simply about looking honestly at the things around you and asking, is this serving my life as it is now? Or am I keeping it for a version of my life that no longer exists? The children's rooms were kept as museums, the clothing from 3 decades ago, the hobby equipment from interests long since moved on from, the books that were read once and will not be read again. None of these things are worth holding on to at the cost of the lightness that comes from letting them go. Margaret spent 2 weekends going through her house with this question as her guide. Does this belong in my life as it is today? What went to charity filled a small van. What remained, she said, felt like a room she had finally cleaned after years of working around the mess. The mental clutter matters too. The running list of things half finished, decisions unmade, tasks deferred. A simple weekly practice of writing down everything on your mental plate and deliberately crossing off anything that does not need to be there is surprisingly effective. Not everything that sits in your head worrying you is actually your responsibility to solve. We are halfway through, and we are about to get to the 5 that I think will land hardest. Number 5, the one I mentioned in the opening of this video, is the one almost every senior carries every day and almost nobody questions. It looks like love, it feels like responsibility, but it is quietly one of the most draining things on this entire list. And things 6, 7, and 8 touch parts of life that most content on this topic never goes near. Stay with me. Number 5, overparenting your adult children. Love does not have to mean managing. Here it is, the thing that looks like love but costs more than almost anything else on this list. Over-involvement in the lives of your adult children. Let me be careful here, because I am not talking about having close relationships with your children. Close relationships with your adult children are one of the most meaningful and health-protective things you can have. I am talking about something different. The daily worry about their choices, the unsolicited advice, the anxiety about their marriages, their finances, their parenting, their career decisions, the constant emotional monitoring of their well-being as if they are still 12 and you are still the person responsible for making sure everything is okay. Most parents do not choose this. It is simply that the switch that triggers parental concern, the switch that was flipped on the day your first child was born, never got turned off. And so you keep running on it, decades later, long after your children are grown adults fully capable of managing their own lives. This costs you an enormous amount of energy, and here is the hard truth. It does not actually help them. Adult children who feel managed or monitored by a parent do not feel supported. They feel not quite trusted, and they often gradually create distance to protect their own autonomy. The parents who have the closest relationships with their adult children in later life are almost universally the ones who made a conscious shift from manager to support. From involved to available, present when asked for, not hovering when not. Harold described this as the most uncomfortable thing he has done in the last 2 years. His son had made a financial decision Harold thought was unwise. In the past, Harold would have said something, then said it again, then found a different angle to say it from. Instead, he said nothing. He watched. He was available if asked. He was not asked. The decision worked out, but more importantly, his son called him 3 weeks later just to talk, which had not happened in a long time. Harold believes the two things are connected. Love does not have to mean managing. After 65, it mostly means being present and letting people be who they are. Number 6, grudges and old resentments. The only person carrying this is you. There is a way of talking about forgiveness that makes people bristle, and understandably, it can sound like being asked to excuse something that was not okay, or to pretend that a hurt did not happen, or to give someone who wronged you something they do not deserve. That is not what this is about. Forgiveness, in the sense that actually matters for your health and your peace, is not about the other person at all. It is about you. It is about choosing to set down a weight that you have been carrying, often for years, sometimes for decades, that is doing them no harm whatsoever, while it does you real, measurable damage. The research on this is not subtle. Chronic resentment and unresolved anger are associated with elevated cortisol, higher blood pressure, disrupted sleep, and poorer immune function, All of the same physiological costs we talked about with loneliness. Your body treats emotional weight the same way it treats physical threat. And grudges are heavy things. They take up residence in your mind. They surface in quiet moments. They color how you experience the present, because they tie part of you permanently to something that happened in the past. After 65, the question worth asking is not whether the other person deserves your forgiveness. It is whether you deserve to be free of it. Harold had a falling out with a brother 11 years ago. They had not spoken since. He carried it without always consciously knowing he was carrying it. It would just surface, particularly at family occasions, as a kind of dull ache. He wrote his brother a letter, not an apology exactly. He did not feel he was entirely wrong. Just, "I have been thinking about you, and I would rather have you in my life than not." His brother called him within a week. 11 years. One letter. The weight Harold put down that day, he said, was heavier than he had realized. He had not known how much of his energy had been going into quietly maintaining that resentment until it was gone. Number 7. Perfectionism. Good enough is actually good. Perfectionism in seniors often looks very different from perfectionism in younger adults. It is not usually about career performance or professional achievement anymore. It is the house that must be kept exactly so, the meals that must be made properly, the standards that must be maintained even when maintaining them is genuinely exhausting. The refusal to ask for help because accepting help means admitting you cannot do it yourself. It is the inability to let something be adequate when you could, with more effort, make it better. This costs a lot. Not because maintaining standards is wrong, it is not, but because the standards most seniors apply to themselves were set for a different body, a different energy level, a different set of priorities. Applying 45-year-old standards to a 70-year-old body is not admirable. It is unkind to yourself. There is also the things perfectionism is usually protecting, a sense of control, a sense of competence, a sense of identity can be found in other ways, ways that do not require exhausting yourself to make the kitchen spotless or refusing to sit down until every task on the list is finished. Dorothy described spending 2 hours cleaning the bathroom before her daughter visited, not because her daughter would have cared, because Dorothy would have felt she should have. "I eventually asked myself," she said, "who exactly I am performing for. And I could not come up with a convincing answer. The shift here is learning to distinguish between the standards that genuinely matter to you, that reflect your real values and the things you actually care about, and the ones you are maintaining out of habit or fear, or because they have just always been this way. Some things are worth doing well. Not everything is worth doing perfectly. And at 65, you have earned the right to know the difference. Number 8, the fear of what comes next. The future will take care of itself better if you are fully here now. This is the most tender one on the list, and the one I want to spend the most care on. After 65, the future carries a weight it did not carry before, not because anything specific has happened, necessarily, but because the horizon is more visible than it used to be. There is more awareness that time is finite, that health can change, that the people you love will not be here forever. This awareness can be profoundly generative. It can clarify what matters, deepen relationships, bring genuine presence and gratitude to ordinary moments. Or it can do the opposite. It can become a persistent background anxiety, a low-level worry about what might happen, what will eventually happen, how you will manage, whether you will be a burden, whether your money will last, whether you will lose your independence. That anxiety, when it becomes chronic, is one of the most significant thieves of peace in later life. And here is the hardest thing to say about it. Most of what you are worrying about has not happened, may not happen, and if it does happen, you will deal with it then, with the information and resources available at that time, most of which you do not have access to now. Worry is your mind trying to prepare for the future by rehearsing it, but the future cannot actually be rehearsed. It can only be met, and the energy spent rehearsing it is energy taken directly from the present, from the life that is actually happening, right now, in the body and the day and the relationships you actually have. Harold put it simply, I spent a lot of last year worrying about health problems I do not have yet, and the irony is that all that worrying probably gave me health problems. There is genuine work worth doing to prepare for later life. Financial planning, legal documents, home modifications, conversations with family. We have covered a lot of that on this channel. Do those things. They reduce genuine uncertainty, and they are worth doing. But once the preparation is done, or as done as it can reasonably be, the anxiety that remains is not useful information. It is just fear looking for somewhere to live. Let it not live in you. What helps? The practice of returning to what is actually true today, not what might be true next year. What is true today, what your body feels today, who you talk to today, what was good today. Gratitude practices, and I say this knowing how overused that word has become, genuinely work, not because thinking positive thoughts changes reality, but because deliberately noticing what is present and good trains the brain's attention away from chronic anticipatory anxiety. 5 things. Each morning. Written or just thought. What is actually here, actually good, actually working. Not as a denial of the harder things. Just as a counterweight. Margaret started doing this after a particularly anxious few weeks last autumn. She told me it felt embarrassingly simple. She also told me she has not missed a day in 4 months. 8 things worth scaling back after 65. Let us put them together simply. 1. The obligation to be constantly busy. Rest is not something you earn by finishing everything. It is something you deserve by existing. Give yourself slow mornings. 2. Relationships that only take. You are allowed to be selective. Energy given to draining relationships is energy taken from the ones that matter. 3. The need for everyone's approval. What people think of you is mostly about them. Give your attention to your actual relationships and your own integrity instead. 4. Physical and mental clutter. Does this belong in your life as it is today? If not, let it go. The lightness you get back is real. 5. Overparenting your adult children. Love does not mean managing. Available is not the same as hovering. The shift from manager to support often brings people closer, not further. 6. Grudges and old resentments. The weight of them is yours, not theirs. You deserve to set it down. 7. Perfectionism. Some things are worth doing well. Not everything is worth doing perfectly. At 65, you know the difference. Trust yourself. 8. Fear of what comes next. Prepare what you can prepare. Then come back to today. Today is where your life actually is. None of these are things you let go of once, and then it is done. They are practices. Things you return to, probably for the rest of your life, choosing again and again to put down what does not need to be carried. But every time you make that choice, the life you actually have, the one happening right now, in this body, in this house, with these people, gets a little more of your full attention, and that is worth everything. Harold told his daughter something recently that she said she thinks about every day. He said, I spent 60 years building a life. I did not realize I had to spend the next part of it deciding which pieces of it were actually mine. That is the work of this stage. Not building, choosing, deciding, with clearer eyes and less time to waste, what you actually want to carry forward, and what you can finally, gently, put down. The art of letting go is not about having less. It is about having more of what matters. More energy for the people who replenish you, more presence in the days that are actually happening, More space for the quiet and the beauty and the simple things that are very easy to miss when you are carrying too much. You have earned the right to carry less. Start today. Pick one thing from this list, just one, and ask yourself honestly, what would change if I let this go? You probably already know the answer. If this video helped you in any way, please like and subscribe for more practical advice on living a healthier and more meaningful life after 60. I would love to hear from you. Which of these 8 things connected with you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments because your experience may help someone else feel understood and less alone. If you know someone who needs this message, share it with them. Sometimes a simple conversation can help someone make a positive change. Remember, you don't have to carry everything forever. Choose one thing to let go of today and give yourself permission to move forward. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next video.